We've been uncovering amazing remains of a Byzantine church complex. The church covers an area of about 1.5 dunums.
What if Jesus spoke words no one has ever heard, hidden from the Bible for 1,500 years? Deep in Galilee, archaeologists uncovered something that could rewrite history. A forgotten Byzantine church built over the house of Peter, one of Jesus' closest followers. At first, it looked like a simple ruin. Mud, rubble, centuries of neglect. But as they cleared the layers, a stunning mosaic emerged, almost perfectly preserved, its reds, blues, and golds glowing like a secret message from the past. The surface inscriptions honored Peter, but beneath, hidden in a faint circle of letters, the team found something shocking. Advanced imaging revealed words that didn't match anything in the Bible, a personal message carved 2 millennia ago, possibly from Jesus himself. "Guard my house, for I go to prepare the heavens." Suddenly, everything changed. This wasn't just a house, it was a sacred site, a responsibility entrusted to Peter, a command no one alive today had ever heard. It hints at teachings that were deliberately preserved outside the scriptures, protected by those who knew their importance. For historians and believers, the discovery raises impossible questions. What else was left out? Why was this message hidden? And what does it mean for how we understand Jesus, Peter, and the early church? This isn't just archaeology. It's a direct line to the past, a glimpse of a secret long kept. Before we reveal the full words carved in stone, hit like and subscribe. Most people don't even know this astonishing discovery exists. Now, to understand why this mosaic matters so deeply, you first need to understand the place where it was found, because this wasn't Jerusalem, and it wasn't Nazareth. This was Bethsaida. If you know the Bible, that name should sound familiar. Bethsaida was the hometown of Peter, Andrew, and Philip. It was where Jesus healed a blind man. It was where the feeding of the 5,000 took place. In many ways, it functioned as the operational center of the early apostolic movement. But Bethsaida is also known for something else, something unsettling. It was one of only 3 cities that Jesus openly cursed. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus condemns Bethsaida, saying, "Woe to you," rebuking the city for witnessing miracles, yet refusing to change its ways. He warned that it would be brought down to Hades, and history suggests that's exactly what happened. By the 4th century, Bethsaida had become a ghost town. It vanished from maps. Roman writers stopped mentioning it. It was as if the ground itself had swallowed the city whole. For nearly 2,000 years, no one could agree on where Bethsaida actually stood. 2 locations battled for the title. One was Et Tel, a rocky hilltop packed with impressive ruins, but far too distant from the water to make sense as a fishing village. The other was El Araj, the swampy shoreline where this excavation was taking place. The debate was intense. Entire academic careers were built around proving one site right and the other wrong. Then, the church was discovered, and everything changed. When archaeologists dug beneath the Byzantine mosaic floor, they hit a layer of destruction. Beneath the church were Roman-era homes, and these weren't elite villas or administrative buildings. They were fishermen's houses. The team uncovered lead net weights, fishing hooks, and coins dating back to the 1st century. This was the evidence scholars had been waiting for. A fishing village, active during the exact years Jesus was alive. It was the smoking gun. But there was one more twist, one that made the discovery even more unsettling. The way this church was constructed tells a story, not of chance, but of obsession. The Byzantine builders didn't place the church randomly. They positioned it with extraordinary precision, centering the entire structure over the remains of one specific house. And that raises an obvious question. Why here? In the ancient world, you didn't erect a massive basilica over an ordinary fisherman's home unless that place carried deep significance. The architects of the 5th century went to remarkable lengths to protect this exact spot. They built a protective wall around the original room. They treated the dirt floor of the old house not as rubble, but as a sacred object. Every detail points to the same conclusion. The builders were completely convinced they were standing on the actual home of Peter. Skeptics might argue that the Byzantines were simply guessing, but ancient memory was far more reliable than we often assume. People didn't rely on maps or written records the way we do today. They relied on living memory. Grandfathers brought their grandsons to this place and told them, "This is where the rock of the church once lived." The discoveries at El Araj suggest something remarkable. Despite the curse, despite the city's disappearance, a small community of believers remained. They protected the location. They kept its identity alive. They passed the knowledge down, generation after generation. And when the empire finally became Christian, they did what they had been waiting centuries to do. They marked the site with a monument that would endure. But this monument wasn't built as a simple memorial. It was a vault. And inside that vault, its builders sealed a sentence meant to survive centuries, one that pulls us back to the moment Jesus spoke directly to his followers. Because what they embedded into the floor wasn't a verse you'll find in any Sunday school lesson. The stones were about to break their silence. As conservators carefully removed layers of dirt and decay, Greek letters began to emerge. The team gathered around, cameras flashing, hearts pounding. An expert in ancient Greek was called in immediately to translate the inscription on site. It opens with a formal dedication to a bishop, nothing unusual. But then the tone shifts. The text mentions Peter, and it doesn't refer to him casually. It calls him the chief and commander of the heavenly apostles. That phrase is explosive. In theology, language is never accidental. The specific Greek words used here carry immense weight. They imply rank, authority, a clear chain of command. They suggest that by the 5th century, right here in rural Galilee, Peter was seen not just as one disciple among many, but as the supreme leader. This strikes at the heart of one of Christianity's longest-running debates: authority. The Catholic Church grounds its legitimacy in the belief that Peter was the first pope, the rock upon which the Church was built. Many Protestant traditions argue the opposite, claiming Peter was simply a leader among equals. But buried beneath the mud of Peter's own hometown is a text that supports the supreme commander view. It shows that local Christians, the people who lived where Peter lived, believed he was in charge. And there's more. The inscription also identifies Peter as the key bearer, a phrase that points directly to the moment when Jesus is said to have given Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven. But the mosaic doesn't stop at that familiar verse, and this is where the story takes a truly wild turn. The team soon realized the inscription wasn't just a single block of text. It was enclosed within a medallion, a circular frame. And inside that border, barely visible, were smaller, fainter letters. They were difficult to make out, as if they had been slowly worn away by thousands of footsteps over the centuries. Or perhaps they had been carved lightly on purpose, meant to be seen only by those who knew to look. To the naked eye, the words were almost invisible. So the researchers brought in advanced imaging equipment. Infrared scanners were used to see beneath the grime and the damage left by time. When the images appeared on the screen, the entire tent fell silent. What they were seeing was a continuation of the inscription, a quote written as direct speech, words spoken by the Lord himself to his disciple. Ancient churches often display Bible verses on their walls or floors. That part wasn't unusual. But this text didn't match any known manuscript. It wasn't a standard quotation. It was different, a variation, a deviation, or possibly something even more unsettling. It could have been an earlier version, one that was later edited out. The mood at the excavation changed instantly. This was no longer just an artistic discovery. The team was staring at what appeared to be a record of a conversation that took place 2,000 years ago, just steps from where they were standing. The words were personal, intimate, and they hinted at a cosmic role, an assignment unlike anything recorded in Scripture. The scan revealed something no one expected: the preparation of heaven itself. Once the infrared scans were processed, linguists got to work. They carefully reconstructed the broken letters hidden within the faint inner ring of the mosaic. Piece by piece, a sentence emerged. It read something like this: "Guard my house, for I go to prepare the heavens." Pause on that for a moment. Guard my house. In the Gospel of John, Jesus tells Peter to feed my sheep. In Matthew, he calls him the rock on which the church will be built. But nowhere in the accepted New Testament does Jesus ever tell Peter to guard my house. And then there's the second line: "For I go to prepare the heavens." We're familiar with a similar verse: "I go to prepare a place for you," from John 14. But this wording is different, and that difference matters. It suggests a division of responsibility. Jesus is departing to prepare what comes next, while Peter is left behind as a kind of watchman over what remains, which raises a crucial question. What exactly is the house? If it were only a metaphor for the church, the phrase wouldn't be so striking. But remember where this inscription was found. The church was built directly over a house, Peter's house. What if the ancient tradition wasn't just that Peter lived here? What if the tradition said that Jesus explicitly told him, "Stay here, protect this place. This is the anchor point"? That idea fits with something scholars call the agrapha, sayings attributed to Jesus that survive in ancient texts but never made it into the Bible. Dozens of these sayings exist. Some are strange, some are deeply moving, but finding one permanently carved into the floor of a major pilgrimage site gives it extraordinary weight. It suggests the people of Bethsaida remembered something the gospel writers chose not to record. And the phrase, "guard my house," reshapes how we see Peter's role entirely. It doesn't frame him as an administrator or manager. It casts him as a protector, a sentinel, someone standing watch. Defense against what? That's where the speculation begins. In early Christian belief, sacred places weren't peaceful by default. They were battlegrounds, locations thought to attract opposition, where unseen forces pushed back hardest. Demons, according to early tradition, were believed to despise holy ground. So when Jesus tells Peter to guard the house, it may not have been a symbolic role at all. It may have been an assignment, one that went far beyond preaching or leadership, a spiritual duty rooted in protection. This discovery also does something else. It narrows the distance between legend and reality. It grounds the story. It turns abstract ideas, like the keys to heaven, into something physical and practical. After all, keys are meant to lock and protect a real place. In effect, the mosaic suggests that the earliest believers saw this exact location, this specific stretch of mud in Galilee, as nothing less than heaven's outpost on earth, an embassy. And Peter wasn't just a teacher there. He was the one left in charge. the ambassador, told to hold the line until the master returned. But there's still another layer to this story, one that moves beyond history and into the mystical, the idea of preparing the heavens. What does that actually mean? It sounds less like a metaphor and more like construction work, as if heaven itself wasn't finished yet. It suggests that while Peter was holding the line on earth, Christ was actively shaping what came next, building, preparing, expanding reality itself. That's a far more dynamic vision of the afterlife than what most people hear in Sunday sermons. The team understood immediately that they were dealing with something explosive. This single sentence seemed to connect earth and sky, history and theology, the physical and the divine. But as with all discoveries like this, there's an even stranger possibility. And the final piece of this puzzle isn't buried in the ground. It's written in the stars. If we take the inscription at face value, "Guard my house, for I go to prepare the heavens," it immediately sparks a series of questions. Why this place? Why this specific spot on earth? And how could preparing the heavens possibly require a physical location to be guarded here below? Some independent scholars and unconventional theologians have floated a bold idea. They suggest that certain locations on earth may act as spiritual anchor points, places where the physical world and the spiritual world intersect more closely than anywhere else. This concept, often summarized as above, so below, has been known for centuries. The idea that what happens in heaven is reflected on earth. But what if this isn't just metaphor? What if it's literal? What if the earth itself has a network of points where reality feels thinner, where the boundaries between worlds are more fragile? Could Bethsaida have been one of those points, a place where heaven and earth briefly overlapped? Looking at the events recorded there, the pattern becomes striking. This wasn't just a sleepy fishing village, it was a place where miracles were said to happen. The blind regained sight, thousands were fed with only a few loaves of bread, and Jesus walked across water, defying the laws of nature. From a modern perspective, it almost seems as if the normal rules of physics were flexible there, as though reality itself bent to something greater. So perhaps guarding the house wasn't simply about protecting a building or even a community of believers. Maybe it was about safeguarding a boundary, a threshold between the earthly and the divine. This idea aligns with certain ancient Gnostic texts, later rejected by the early church, which speak of guardians and gatekeepers who watch over thresholds between heaven and earth, between light and matter. The mosaic discovered at El Araj may be a remnant of this older, more mystical vision of early Christianity, a vision that was gradually overshadowed as the church became more structured under Roman influence. Over time, the emphasis shifted to hierarchy, doctrine, and organization, and the more cosmic, mysterious interpretations were quietly pushed aside. This discovery also changes how we might view the apostles themselves. Instead of seeing Peter and the others merely as teachers or leaders spreading a message, we can imagine them as participants in something much larger. Peter wasn't just a fisherman turned disciple. According to this inscription, he was entrusted with a vital responsibility to guard something sacred while Jesus departed. That casts the ascension in a new light. Perhaps it wasn't just a farewell. Perhaps it was a transfer of responsibility, leaving someone behind to protect what was most important while Christ prepared the heavens. There's one more eerie detail that makes all of this feel almost deliberate. The church itself wasn't destroyed by invaders. In the 8th century, an earthquake buried it, sealing the building beneath layers of earth for over 1,000 years. And now, after so many centuries, it has re-emerged. The timing feels almost intentional, as if the message was never meant only for Peter, but for generations yet to come. Guard the house, protect the foundation. Today, the site has been carefully covered again for preservation, but the words have been documented and cannot be erased. They have resurfaced, waiting for the world to see them. And that raises a haunting final question. If Jesus gave Peter instructions that never made it into the Bible, what else might be missing? Are there more words, more teachings, preserved outside Scripture, waiting to be discovered? Or is this simply a remarkable mosaic flaw that we are reading too much into? Whatever the answer, the message endures. Guard the house, protect what matters, and perhaps in doing so, we are glimpsing a side of early Christianity that was always meant to remain hidden, until now. If you want to uncover more lost history and hidden truths, hit like and subscribe.